He could have lashed out a little bit.
I'm a little confused.
By what?
No bad play call works? Well, first he said no good play call works. And then he said no. I don't really know what he was saying there. I'm sure there's bad play calls.
Yeah, you want to run that back to this? Because that went over my head. But yeah, no bad or good play calls. Where it's true with the Patriots. That's actually true. No play call.
Jonathan was upset. That came out. There was nobody more pissed off than I was. I can promise you that. No good play call or no bad play call works.
Okay. So he misspoke and then he corrected himself.
But I think there's bad play calls that work all the time when you have like Saquon Barkley and Mike Vick.
Yeah, like broken plays.
Stuff happens.
End up working. It's rare, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, I found that very...
Not on this team.
I think what he wanted to say is if we execute, they're all good play calls. And if we don't execute, they're all bad play calls.
Right.
Like, I think that was the intention, but it was clunky, I guess would be the word, the execution. Kind of like his offense.
Yeah, kind of like the offense, kind of like, all of that. And I think that, in general, with Van Pelt, that there was opportunity for him to say, I think there's only so much I can do. I'm working here. I'm doing the best I can. We're all trying to do our best. And he didn't. He said, I have Jerod's back at all costs.
Which I also found interesting.
Which was a nice thing for him to say.
You have Jerod's back.
Right. Mayo didn't have your back.
What I want to know is, do you think he has yours?
Right.
Because externally, it doesn't look like he does. Looks like he put a knife in your back. He hugged you like the freaking gladiator and snapped one off, a shiv.
It's true. In hindsight, it's easy to look back and say, I wish I could have done something differently. That's always part of the play caller's deal after a game. Would I call that play again in that situation? Probably. We need a half a yard. We need a similar play in the goal line in the Jets game to win it. That's an attitude play. That's move guys off the ball. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and that was a big swing in the game. If you notice that keeps happening, you notice this is something that maybe if you want to give Alex Van Pelt any type of critique, and I feel like this is one that goes more towards Mayo than him, it's that he's the conservative one. It's that he's the one who doesn't want to open up the passing game and go downfield. He's the one who's always handing it off on 1st and 2nd down after an interception or on 4th and 1 or whatever it is. Like, at what point does Alex Van Pelt start to shoulder some of that?
Well, and I also think it's weird because they ran the ball pretty well this week. And in the game you're talking about, the Gonzalez interception, they were running the ball pretty well until they didn't run the ball well when they needed to run the ball well, and it caused them to lose momentum, lose the game, lose opportunities, and that's on him. So there is some foundation in his logic, but isn't it also, like, going back to the Gonzalez one, the offensive lineman, I think it was Layden Robbins, were like, yeah, they started really playing the run differently and different because they knew we were running it, and it's like, isn't that on him? Don't we always hear play calling is like 3 plays ahead and setting things up? And I go back to, I'm not sure this team is good enough with the line they have and the offense they have to it's just a point where you're going to move people. That's a gotta have a wanna have it kind of play. I don't know if you're good enough to do that. I think sometimes you have to trick them. And you know who I think agrees with me? Them. And I think that's why they ran a 4th down toss to Ramondre Stevenson, because they don't always think they can line up and just power people out of the way and execute their blocks with Vidarian Lowe and Ben Brown and these guys that have already shown they miss blocks. That's part of their resume from the season.
Every week they miss blocks, yes.
A lot, every week.
Alex Van Pelt also said that he has not had a conversation with Robert or Jonathan Kraft since that clip came out, but that his door is always open. That's nice.
Yeah.
Glad the door is always open. That's a good policy to have. Open door policy.
Is it?
It is.
Especially when you're talking to a $11 billion boss. Do you say the door is open?
I don't know if you want your $11 billion boss coming through that door.
I don't think you do.
May not be what you want. Or,
he knows where to find me.
Robin Glazer with the hammer. I don't think you want that either. I think in general you either hope that there's some sort of intermediary. You hope that someone maybe comes to speak to you on their behalf to say, hey, just so you know, they're not so happy up there. When they come down there, something's about to happen. When they come down to the office, I feel like that's not because they want to have a chit-chat. Like, they're coming down to execute someone or execute something.
Or the opposite.
What do you mean?
Maybe they could come down with positive intentions. Say, listen, I know what it looked like on national TV and social media and the internet and everywhere globally.
But they haven't.
No, they haven't. Right. That, I think, is the bad sign.
Yeah.
So I'm saying they could have walked through the door and said, listen, I know it looks bad, and I apologize for that, but you have our full support for at least the remainder of the season kind of thing. And they didn't.
They did not. If they did, he certainly didn't mention it. He said that they haven't had a conversation since that clip, and that clip was on Sunday.
I would take that as a bad sign.
I would too.
Because they don't want to lie to him and promise him anything that's not true.
Right.
They're about to fire his ass on Black Monday, and they are just going to let it lie where it lies.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's part of why this Jerod Mayo story continues to persist.